Okay, let's settle in and chat for a little while. Sometimes you go to lift that familiar bag of garden soil, or maybe just the weekly groceries, and suddenly it feels heavier, significantly heavier than you remember. Or perhaps it's that little push you need to get up from your favorite low armchair after reading for a while. It seems to demand just a bit more effort, a bit more of a rock forward than it used to. Does that sound familiar at all? It's these little moments, these subtle shifts in what our bodies can comfortably do, that can sometimes make us pause and wonder what's changing. It's completely understandable to feel a bit concerned or even frustrated when tasks that were once easy start to feel like a genuine effort. Many people experience this, especially as we move into our 60s, 70s, and beyond. What we're really touching upon here is something called age-related muscle loss, sometimes referred to by the medical term sarcopenia. Now, that might sound a bit technical or even alarming, but honestly, understanding it is incredibly empowering. It's a natural process, this gradual decline in muscle mass and strength that often starts subtly much earlier in life, around our mid-30s, believe it or not, and tends to pick up a bit more pace after 50. By the time we reach our 70s, it's not uncommon to have lost a significant portion of the muscle we had in our younger years. But, and this is the really important part, knowing about it, recognizing the signs, and understanding what we can do about it can make a tremendous difference to how we feel, how independent we remain, and truly, our overall enjoyment of life. It's not about fighting aging itself, but about maintaining our vitality and capability within the aging process. Over the next little while together, we'll explore some common signs that might suggest you're losing a bit more muscle than is ideal. And then we'll chat about some really practical, encouraging ways you can actually help rebuild and maintain that strength, even well into your later years. We'll look at simple exercises, the importance of what we eat, and other supportive habits. So, let's start with recognizing those signals your body might be sending. The first one we already touched upon, that noticeable decreased strength and endurance. This is often the most obvious sign. It's not just about lifting heavy things. It might be finding it harder to open a stubborn jar that you used to pop open easily, or feeling like you need to take a break halfway up a flight of stairs you used to bound up without a second thought. I remember my own neighbor, Margaret, a keen gardener well into her late 70s, telling me how she first noticed it wasn't the kneeling that got harder, but pushing herself back up after weeding, and carrying the watering can felt like a much bigger chore. It wasn't a sudden change, but a gradual realization that her physical capacity for these tasks she loved was diminishing. This directly impacts our ability to do the things we enjoy and need to do, affecting our independence and, frankly, our confidence. It's not just about brute strength. It's about the functional strength needed for daily living. Feeling that slip away can be disheartening, but recognizing it is the first step towards addressing it. Building on that idea of decreased physical capacity, another very common sign is experiencing increased fatigue and just feeling generally drained of energy. You might be getting what feels like a decent night's sleep, maybe even 8 solid hours, but you still wake up feeling tired, or you find yourself needing a nap mid-afternoon just to get through the day, even on days you haven't been particularly active. Why does this happen? Well, muscle tissue is metabolically active. It's like your body's engine, constantly burning fuel, calories, to generate energy, even when you're just sitting reading a book. When you have less muscle mass, your body's overall energy-generating capacity decreases. It's like trying to run a large appliance on a smaller generator. It just doesn't have the same power output. This can lead to that persistent feeling of fatigue that isn't necessarily resolved by rest alone. Think about George, who used to love his morning walks around the park. He mentioned recently that by the time he gets home, instead of feeling invigorated, he feels wiped out for hours afterwards, even though the walk itself wasn't particularly long or strenuous. That disproportionate fatigue after minimal exertion can be a clue that underlying muscle loss might be contributing. It's a subtle shift, but one that can really creep up on you if you're not paying attention. Another sign that can sometimes be a bit surprising is noticing changes in your body composition, even if the number on the scale hasn't changed much, or maybe it's even gone up slightly. You might look in the mirror and feel like your arms or legs seem less defined, maybe a bit softer or thinner than they used to be, while perhaps you notice a bit more padding accumulating around your middle or hips. This happens because as a muscle mass decreases, the relative proportion of body fat often increases to fill that space, so to speak. Muscle is denser than fat, so you can lose muscle and gain a bit of fat without a dramatic weight change. But the shape and firmness of your body changes. It's not about striving for a particular physique, not at all, but more about recognizing this shift as an indicator of underlying muscle loss. For instance, my friend Helen mentioned she noticed her favorite trousers felt tighter around the waist, yet seemed looser around her thighs. She hadn't drastically changed her eating habits, but her body shape was clearly shifting. This visual cue, this change in where your body holds its weight and how defined your limbs look, can be another piece of the puzzle, suggesting that muscle tissue might be declining while fat tissue is becoming more prominent. It's a common experience, and again, not something to be overly critical of yourself about, but rather something to observe as useful information about what's happening internally. And this ties directly into the next point, finding it increasingly difficult to perform simple, everyday tasks. This really hits home for many people because it directly impacts day-to-day independence. We talked about getting up from a chair, but it could also be things like reaching up to get something off a high shelf in the kitchen cupboard, twisting the lid off a new jar of jam, carrying a laundry basket up or down stairs, or even just getting in and out of the car, feeling a bit more cumbersome. These aren't massive feats of strength, are they? But they require a certain level of functional muscle power and coordination. When muscle mass declines, these simple movements can become genuinely challenging. I was chatting with Arthur at the community center, and he shared, quite openly, his frustration about needing to ask his daughter to open jars for him now, something he'd always done himself without a thought. It wasn't just the physical difficulty. It was the feeling of losing that small bit of self-sufficiency that bothered him most. You might find yourself adapting without even realizing it. Perhaps you start using both hands to lift the kettle, or you position yourself carefully before attempting to stand up. These adaptations are clever, but they can also mask the underlying issue of declining strength, impacting your functional ability. Acknowledging these difficulties isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of awareness, which is incredibly valuable. Then there's the matter of slower metabolism and potential weight gain. As we briefly touched on earlier, muscle is your body's metabolic powerhouse. It burns significantly more calories at rest than fat tissue does. So, as you naturally lose muscle mass with age, your basal metabolic rate, the number of calories your body burns just to keep functioning while at rest, tends to decrease. This means that even if you continue eating the same amount and types of food as you always have, and maintain a similar activity level, you might find yourself gradually gaining weight, often seemingly out of nowhere. It can feel quite perplexing, can't it? You think, I haven't changed anything. Why are these pounds creeping on? It's often because the underlying engine, your muscle mass, has become smaller and less efficient at burning fuel. This metabolic slowdown is a direct consequence of losing that active muscle tissue. It's not just about weight either. This change can also impact how your body processes sugars, potentially affecting blood sugar control over time. So, if you've noticed a bit of unexplained weight gain, or find it harder to manage your weight despite consistent habits, a slowing metabolism due to muscle loss could certainly be a contributing factor. And that can be frustrating when you feel like you haven't really changed how you eat. Tied into all of this, unfortunately, is an increased injury risk and sometimes reduced mobility or balance. Strong muscles act like natural braces for our joints, providing stability and support. They also play a crucial role in maintaining good balance and coordinating our movements. When muscles weaken, particularly in the legs and core, our joints become less supported, our balance can falter, and our gait, the way we walk, might change subtly. You might notice you're not lifting your feet quite as high, or perhaps you feel a bit less steady when turning quickly or walking on uneven surfaces. This instability significantly increases the risk of slips, trips, and falls, which, as we know, can have serious consequences as we get older, sometimes leading to fractures and lengthy recoveries. Think about trying to catch yourself if you stumble. Strong leg and core muscles react quickly to help you regain balance. Weaker muscles react more slowly and less effectively. Furthermore, if an injury does occur, having less muscle mass can mean a longer and more challenging recovery period. Your body has less reserve strength to draw upon during the healing process. It's a bit of a cycle. Weaker muscles lead to higher fall risk, and falls can lead to inactivity during recovery, which can further weaken muscles. Recognizing any changes in your balance or feeling less stable on your feet is a really important signal not to ignore. So, those are some of the key signs. Feeling weaker, getting tired more easily, noticing body shape changes, struggling with daily tasks, a slower metabolism, and perhaps feeling less steady. Seeing these laid out might feel a bit discouraging, but please don't let it. Remember, the whole point of recognizing these signs is that it gives us the power to act. And the truly wonderful news from countless studies is that it is absolutely, unequivocally, never too late to improve muscle mass and strength. Even people starting resistance exercise programs in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s can see significant improvements and can actually reverse some of the age-related changes within their muscle fibers. Isn't that fantastic? It means we have real, tangible strategies we can use. So, let's shift our focus now to the positive, proactive steps we can take. What are these effective ways to regain muscle and strength, especially after 70? The number one, most consistently recommended approach is implementing progressive resistance training. Now, resistance training might conjure up images of bodybuilders lifting huge weights, but that's not what we're talking about here for most of us. It simply means exercises that make your muscles work against some form of resistance. The progressive part is key. It means you start at a level that feels manageable for you and then gradually increase the challenge over time. This could mean adding slightly more weight, doing a few more repetitions, or increasing the frequency of your sessions. The research is incredibly clear. This type of exercise is the most effective way to stimulate muscle growth and improve strength in older adults. Even just 2 sessions per week, focusing on major muscle groups, can lead to significant gains in both muscle mass and physical performance, making those daily tasks feel easier again. You could start with very light weights, resistance bands, or even just your own body weight. The goal is to challenge your muscles gently but consistently. And working hand in hand with exercise is prioritizing protein intake. This is so crucial. As we get older, our bodies actually become slightly less efficient at using the protein we eat to build muscle. That anabolic resistance we mentioned earlier. This means older adults generally need more protein in their diet compared to younger adults to achieve the same muscle building effect. Think of protein as the essential building blocks for repairing and creating new muscle tissue after you've challenged it with exercise. Where do you get it? Focus on high-quality sources like lean meats, chicken, turkey, lean beef, fish, especially fatty fish like salmon, which also has anti-inflammatory benefits. Eggs, dairy products like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, milk, and excellent plant-based options such as beans, lentils, tofu, edamame, and quinoa. One really helpful tip is to try and distribute your protein intake fairly evenly across your meals throughout the day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, rather than having most of it in one big meal. This seems to help optimize the muscle protein synthesis process, giving your body a steady supply of those building blocks when it needs them. Maybe adding some eggs or Greek yogurt to breakfast, having lentils or chicken in your lunch salad or soup, and including fish or beans with your evening meal. Small adjustments can make a big difference here. Of course, knowing you need to do resistance training is one thing. Actually doing it is another. It's important to use accessible strength-building methods that feel right for you and your current abilities. You absolutely do not need an expensive gym membership. Effective options are often right at your fingertips. Body weight exercises are fantastic. Think squats. You can start by just practicing sitting down and standing up from a sturdy chair without using your hands. Modified push-ups, against a wall, or on your knees on the floor. Lunges, holding on to something for balance if needed. Or calf raises. Resistance bands are another wonderful tool. They're inexpensive, portable, provide variable resistance, and are generally very gentle on the joints. You can do a huge variety of exercises with them for both upper and lower body. And then there are light to moderate free weights. This could be small dumbbells, or you can even get creative with sturdy household objects like water bottles, cans of soup, or small bags filled with sand or rice. The key is to find methods that you feel comfortable and safe using, allowing you to progressively challenge yourself without undue strain. Start light, focus on good form, and build up gradually. It's also really beneficial to combine different training approaches. While resistance training is king for building muscle mass, research suggests that a program combining several types of exercise, sometimes called multiform therapeutic exercise, often yields even better results for overall functionality. This means incorporating resistance training for strength, aerobic activities, like brisk walking, swimming, cycling, or dancing, for cardiovascular health and endurance, and balance and walking exercises specifically to improve stability and reduce fall risk. Think of it as a well-rounded approach. Aerobic exercise improves blood flow, which helps deliver nutrients to your muscles, while balance exercises directly address that stability issue we discussed. A routine that includes, say, 2 days of strength training, 2 or 3 days of walking or swimming, and some daily balance practice, like standing on one leg while holding on to a counter, covers multiple bases simultaneously, improving not just muscle mass, but strength, heart health, and confidence in your movement. Now, whenever we talk about starting or increasing exercise, it's vital to also talk about practicing proper exercise preparation and recovery. Taking a few minutes to do a gentle warm-up before you start your strength exercises. Maybe some light walking, arm circles, or leg swings helps prepare your muscles and joints for the work ahead and reduces the risk of injury. Equally important is what happens after exercise. Allowing your body sufficient rest between strength training sessions is crucial. Muscle repair and growth doesn't happen during the workout itself, but primarily during the recovery period afterwards. This is why aiming for strength sessions on non-consecutive days, e.g. Monday and Thursday, is often recommended. And don't underestimate the power of sleep. Getting adequate, good quality sleep is when your body releases growth hormone and does much of its repair work. So, prioritizing rest and sleep is just as important as the exercise itself for building muscle effectively. Gentle stretching after your workout can also help with flexibility and easing any muscle soreness, something easily overlooked. But incredibly important is simply maintaining proper hydration. Water is involved in almost every metabolic process in the body, including those essential for muscle function and repair. When you're exercising, even moderately, you lose fluids through sweat. Becoming even mildly dehydrated can impair muscle performance, reduce endurance, and hinder the recovery process. Water helps transport nutrients, like those protein building blocks, to your muscles and helps flush out waste products generated during exercise. So, make a conscious effort to drink water regularly throughout the day, not just when you feel thirsty, especially on days you're active. Keep a water bottle handy as a visual reminder. It's such a simple thing, but proper hydration truly supports all your other efforts to build and maintain muscle. Finally, there's growing research interest in the role of addressing inflammation. We know that chronic, low-grade inflammation tends to increase with age and can interfere with muscle repair and growth processes. Some studies suggest that strategies aimed at controlling inflammation, perhaps through diet, like focusing on anti-inflammatory foods, fruits, vegetables, fatty fish, nuts, or other approaches discussed with your doctor, might potentially enhance the positive effects of resistance exercise, especially when it comes to healing and recovery in older individuals. While exercise itself is a powerful anti-inflammatory tool, being mindful of overall inflammation levels could provide an additional layer of support for your muscle-building goals. It's an area where research is ongoing, but certainly worth considering as part of a holistic approach. So you see, while those signs of muscle loss can be concerning, there's a whole toolkit of effective, evidence-based strategies we can use to counteract it and even regain strength and vitality. It's about being proactive and consistent. As we've been chatting about, these adjustments, regular resistance exercise tailored to you, focusing on protein, staying hydrated, getting enough rest, really can add up to feeling stronger, more energetic, and more capable in your daily life. It truly is possible to make a positive difference at any age. Remember, be kind to yourself through this process. It's not about becoming a super athlete overnight. It's about making steady, sustainable progress that enhances your quality of life. Every little bit counts. Every chair squat, every walk, every protein-rich meal is an investment in your strength and independence. Start where you are, do what you can, and celebrate the small victories along the way. I'd love to hear from you all too. Have you noticed any of these signs yourself? Or perhaps you found strategies that have really helped you maintain or even build strength as you've gotten older? Please feel free to share your experiences or any tips you have in the comments below. Learning from each other is so valuable, and it helps build such a wonderful sense of community here. If you found our conversation helpful today, maybe give the video a like. It really helps others find this information too. And if you'd like to join me For more chats like this, focusing on living well and staying vibrant after 60, do consider subscribing to the channel. Take good care, stay strong, and here's to making every day a little brighter and more empowered.